Yo ho ho ho! The second sneak peek has dropped. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and let's jump into the second of hopefully many Shang-Chi sneak peeks. A deadly mastermind whose strength and skills are of legend enters the 7.4 update inspired by Marvel Studios' Shang-Chi. Who is powerful enough to defeat him? Now, just a quick little recap on Shang-Chi as we go ahead and play the sneak peek for you. It's pretty cool, but it's also pretty devoid of any new information. There's not much new information here. However, there's a couple things I want to say. One, if you aren't familiar with the movie and the way that things are being restructured and the family tree in the comics, Shang-Chi's father is not Mandarin, and Mandarin is not Shang-Chi's father, dad, whatever. Like, father and son, they are not. But they decided to do that for the movie and in the MCU just to keep things simple, because they want to introduce both the hero Shang-Chi and the villain Mandarin, and they want to create this sort of family struggle rather than just having Mandarin as a generic villain of Shang-Chi. He's also a very good villain or like a very frequent villain of Iron Man, Tony Stark. But anyways, they're sort of connecting Shang-Chi and this movie with all the way back to Iron Man 1. So there's like a, whatever, 12, 13 year throwback to the original Iron Man back in 2008, I believe it was. So it's really, really cool. And you can actually see the 10 ring logo with the swords in the middle way back in the first Iron Man movie when they're selling weapons off to these different enemies. So yeah, it's in that sense, it's very, very cool. And of course, the MCU never fails to deliver with the continuity, attention to detail, Easter eggs, and then sort of the way they weave their story. But yeah, if you're familiar with the comics, unfamiliar with the movie, this may be a little bit confusing, but here's the thing. Despite the fact that there's very little information from the sneak peek, we obviously know that Mandarin is coming as a brand new character, right? Because that's who that is, right? That's Shang-Chi's father. That's also Mandarin. So we are getting Mandarin, the villain. And presumably they will be in control of, or at least be able to wield the 10 rings with their skill animations. Same with Shang-Chi, right? Because they both wield the rings in the trailers and things like that. However, I tried to punch up the character model here, and this is the best that I got. And I really dragged the slider all the way forward. There's just not a lot of data here, and that's why it's pretty much, it's not empty, but it might as well be empty. And so this leads me to believe that they're still working on the character models for this update, which could mean, I don't want to read too much into it, but it could mean that there's a lot of content in this update and they're really trying to get through everything, because generally speaking, not every sneak peek features the in-game character models, but more often than not, we do see that. And so sometimes when that isn't the case, it's because there's just really so much to get through and the devs are sort of behind on that, and so the sneak peek team doesn't have those assets to work with, or maybe they just don't want to reveal the assets yet. This is also a possibility for sure. Maybe Marvel just doesn't want them to reveal the assets until the update is live, which would actually be 5 days after the movie comes out, because I'm actually going to see the movie on September 3rd, and then the update is out on September 8th. Now, beyond that, beyond the fact that we're getting Mandarin as a brand new character, and that in the movie and moving forward in the MCU, he's going to be Shang-Chi's father, and there's that familial relationship. For the game, there is still the question of, it's pretty cool. I mean, there's still the question of like, what else could we get? So we see the 10 rings here. It's really cool. He obviously uses his energy or whatever kind of power he has to start animating the rings, and they're floating around him. For those of you that went or want to go frame by frame, don't bother. There aren't any clues or hints here. There's no tier 3 logo. There's nothing to read into on this sneak peek at all. But there may be something in the writing. Now, I don't want to get too in the weed, I don't want to get too tinfoil hat here, but the word legend gets thrown around a lot. And I know the movie is called Shang-Chi and the Legend of the 10 Rings, so they sort of have this to predispose them to use the word legend over and over and over again. But we know in Marvel Future Fight, there is the legendary battle, but there is also World Boss Legend. So it could just be legendary battle. It could also be World Boss Legend, in my opinion. It's kind of up in the air as to whether we're going to get both or just Legendary Battle. So let's see what it says here. It has been told that a ruthless warrior wields the power of an ancient artifact. That would be Mandarin, that would be the 10 rings. Living over hundreds of years, this powerful supervillain, so they immediately confirm that he's a supervillain, is able to manipulate the world behind the scenes. A deadly mastermind whose strength and skills are of legend enters. Kind of sounds sus, you know? Timeless warrior. Will there be any agent powerful enough to defeat this legendary figure? Listen, I don't want to start the speculation train and be like, we're definitely getting World Boss Legend Mandarin, but legendary, right? Strength and skills are of legend. Kind of, it's tough. It does kind of sound like a World Boss Legend. Now we definitely know we're getting a legendary battle, and for those of you that forgot, yes, it's called, unfortunately, the confusion is that it's called Legendary Battle. So yes, these are legendary battles, even though they're not legendary in terms of their difficulty. So yes, it's a little bit irritating that we have World Boss Legend, and then we also have Legendary Battle. Yes. However, I would love a new World Boss Legend, and I know a lot of players out there would love one as well. On top of the fact that Mandarin is more likely than not going to be a combat or speed type. He's not going to be blast. He's not going to be universal. Very high chance he's going to be combat, just like his son Shang-Chi. So you're going to have 2 combats, 1 hero, 1 villain, and it would fit the motif of, you know, getting a typing, getting a World Boss Legend of each of the typings. So we've gotten a universal one, we've gotten a blast one, we could be getting a combat one next. I'm not going to say that that's for sure because I obviously have no idea. I don't have any inside information, and if I did, I wouldn't be able to tell you guys, but I don't. Just to be clear, I don't have any inside information, but I would personally really like that. That being said, it's possible that they're just hinting at the legendary battle, and it's not really a hint because we know for every MCU movie, at least until now, there has always been a legendary battle, and so this one should be no different. But why they got to use the word legendary so much? And the thing is, so people might speculate and say, but hold up, Alex, if this is the movie Mandarin, is he going to get a uniform to look like the actor in the movie for the Shang-Chi movie? And is the base Mandarin going to look different? Because the base Mandarin looks quite a bit different. If I go look this up here, if I go to look this up and show you guys, the character in the comics doesn't look like, there's multiple versions here, which is a bit confusing. So we have this version, which is played by Sir Ben Kingsley, and he was the fake Mandarin in Iron Man 3. And again, there's just more relation to Iron Man here. So this is the real Mandarin. This is what he looks like in the comics. So I mean, he doesn't look that much different, but he also looks a little different. He dresses differently, of course. So there is the possibility that you could have a sort of base look for the character and then the movie uniform, because we do know that Marvel Future Fight loves to do both. This is probably the most you know, sort of in between original comics look, but we know that Marvel Future Fight loves to do sort of the regular comics look and then the movie version, and you can see that very clearly with the Black Widow stuff, where you've got the movie version and then you've got the more campy original comic book version. Same thing goes for Yelena, where you have, you know, the movie versions, and you have the sort of more original Dark Avengers version of the character back when she was just in the comics before she made it into the MCU. However, they could just do the movie version, right? They don't have to do, although we're sort of used to this happening, right? Where it's like, you get this one plus the movie uniform. He doesn't actually need to get that. And there's actually multiple pieces of evidence or existing cases where that illustrate that the character could just come out immediately as the uniformed version. So a big example is Korath. He came out for Marvel Studios Captain Marvel. Korath doesn't look like this in the comics at all, right? If you go and look again, I'll go and look up Korath in the comics. Korath looks like Juggernaut in the comics. He looks ridiculous, right? This is Korath. He looks like yeah. They definitely could have done this one and then given him the uniform, but they didn't, right? So we have this one. We actually have quite a few of them. I can't remember There are other ones. You can let me know down below in the comments. They slipped my mind recently, but I know that there are quite a few, and so it's definitely possible that we see that, and that's the case for Mandarin, and that would sort of overcome the hurdle that I think a lot of players are going to have, where it's like, so hang on, they're going to release World Boss Legend Mandarin and give this dude a uniform. This is going to be the first native tier 3 that has a uniform, and it's going to cost how many crystals, Alex? Like, this just doesn't make sense. I mean, it's possible that they do that as well, right? If Marvel Future Fight wants to milk the whales even harder, that's fine. They can do that. I'm not saying that they wouldn't do that, but I'm saying that there's a very set precedent for most characters that come out, right? When they come out, they get their base look and their movie uniform when it's tied to an MCU thing and it's their first time coming into the game. Like I just said, Red Guardian, Yelena, there's way more examples of that. But there are also examples of characters that come in and they just start off looking like the movie version straight away without having to backtrack to the original sort of comics look. So I think it could sort of go either way in that case. Again, there's no guarantee that he's going to be a World Boss Legend whatsoever. It's obviously my hope and the hope of some other players, but we'll have to wait and see. I do think the game needs a new piece of content. I do think we need an upgrade somewhere. It doesn't necessarily have to be World Boss Legend. I talked yesterday in the second video about Sector 11 for dispatch missions or a new chapter of the story stuff, but I think there needs to be something to sort of move the needle forward here, because we've been sort of on a treadmill since Mephisto, right? And Mephisto was back in April. So April, June, July, August, we've gone 4 months without anything really happening besides dispatch. So I think it's a good time to introduce something, maybe trim the fat somewhere else with the game mode. But yeah, it doesn't have to be World Boss Legend like I've said. But personally, I love the challenge of World Boss Legend, and I love the fact that it's a character that you fight that you then get to build up and use. I think that's one of the most fun things about this game, and it's one of the things that consistently sets this game apart from every other game, because you do get to build not only the characters that are released as characters, but the characters that are initially released as bosses. And that is just one of the dopest things ever. Just being able to learn how to beat a boss from the perspective of being the player, and then taking control of the boss and beating up other players, or beating up the boss with himself. Like, why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself? No, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I would love to see that for Mandarin. When we talked about Loki Disney Plus, I wanted a Kang World Boss Legend. Basically, if there's any excuse to bring a new World Boss Legend, I'm down. 5 World Boss Legends a year? Yes, please. 6 World Boss Legends a year? Oh yeah, I'm totally down. I know that doesn't necessarily seem appetizing for newer players, intermediate players, very, very low spending players who are still trying to hoard resources, but I think having more to build, and I've sort of always said this, having more to build is always better than having less to build. So yeah, wanting to have more to build, especially when it comes to the really expensive native tier 3 characters, is something that I can't really get enough of at this point in the game. So hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think of Mandarin and what's going to happen. Is he just going to be a combat villain who's not tier 3able, or maybe tier 3able but not really that impactful? Is he going to be a World Boss Legend? Is he going to be obtained maybe through legendary battle? They're going to try something brand new. Really, there's 3 ways that can shake out. Thanks so much for watching. Hit the like if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.